Okay, in this video I just wanted to talk about how to make QR codes and things to consider when you're making them. And, you know, myself and a lot of people probably in the past have had issues with QR codes, and it's one of those things where you just need to think about a few things up front before you kind of create them. So I'm just going to kind of go step by step, show a few different tools, and explain a couple of things along the way. So we're going to start out just with some basic QR codes. So here we've got the tool from Shopify. You don't need a Shopify account to create them. They will ask you for an email and then they essentially send them to your email, but this is a completely free tool, so this can be really useful. And like I say, it's pretty basic. It gives you website URL, so essentially someone scans the code and then it links them off to your website. You've got one for phone number, one for SMS, and one for plain text. So they're fairly kind of fairly standard uses of a QR code. So we'll do the website URL one, and I'll just use my own website just as an example. So if we just tap that in. Okay, and then once the site's loaded up, all we're going to do is you want to take the whole URL of the site. So, make sure if you're using www. You take that. HTTPS, you should be using that. HTTP doesn't really work anymore. So just make sure you copy all of this out, and then you'll want to drop that into the website URL bit. It does have an example there, saying, and like I say, not all sites are www. You don't necessarily need that, but the easiest thing is just to copy it out of the URL. And then, like I say, you can just stick a email in there. They'll email the code to you, and then you're free to use that in kind of promotional materials. And QR codes are obviously kind of a mostly a print-based thing, because if somebody's already on a computer, they don't really need a QR code. You can just give them a link. But if you're sending them from, it could be a business card, it could be a flyer, a poster, anything really. It's like QR codes really have made like a bit of a resurgence, because probably 10 or 15 years ago people were kind of hyping them up to be the next big thing, and then really they kind of never took off because phones and they just didn't have native support for them, whereas probably the majority of phones now have native support for QR codes, and if they don't, there are hundreds of free apps out there where you can scan them. So it's openly available to anyone now really with a smartphone. So it becomes like quite a much bigger piece of the market. So the beauty of them is obviously you can effectively kind of drive that traffic from sort of print media. The thing with these are obviously they're very basic, and we'll move on to some some more kind of complex type ones. So one thing to bear in mind as well, when you get this code, don't go resizing it. So, you're stretching it too wide or too high, or like kind of stretching it up to be really big. You don't want it to get pixelated or warped in any way, because otherwise then the code's not going to scan properly. So try and keep it at the same aspect ratio, and try not to kind of pixelate it or make it too small. If you make it too small, the pixels can, well, not the pixels, the QR code, the sort of detail in it can sort of start to all mold together, and then you don't have a scannable QR code anymore. So do some testing. If you're going to do it with print, obviously get a test one printed off, check you can scan it properly before you kind of do a big print run. The other thing to make sure is really that you try and stick to the black and white, because this is a really good kind of contrast. You can do coloured barcodes. We'll cover that in a minute. They'll always sit on a white background. You always need a good two contrasting colours. So don't sort of try and sit a black QR code over a grey background or anything like that, because it's going to make it really hard to scan for the camera. So you just want to try and make sure there's a really good contrast there. You quite often find that the colours that are usable, they're usually quite bright colours, so they tend to still have that kind of contrast there. And then what we'll do is I'll tap in my email quickly. You don't really need to see this, but we do that, and then they sort of say to you, it's all been generated, we've sent it to the link, you can download it. you've got your code here. Like I say, you can drag this off, do what you need to do with it. And you've given them your email, so you'll probably end up on the Shopify list for, the odd newsletter. You can unsubscribe from it straight away if you want to. Sometimes there's some quite useful tools and things in there, but you're not forced onto any other lists or anything like that. So, you can go through and you can make as many of these as you want as well. And like I say, they are free, and that is sort of the issue that people have with some other ones. So, there's lots of other QR code generators out there, like we've got QR.io, QR code generator by Bitly. There's some out there that they look really good, and then when you try to use them, for example, in the past, these things change all the time, so it's things that I say in this video obviously can change, but in the past I'd used QR Code Monkey. It says it's 100% free QR code generator, and then you get to the stage of kind of, you're like, okay, great, I've made all these things. You start getting things printed, you get like all the way down to obviously designing things. Once you've got them printed, you obviously can't change them easily. And then some of these, you'll start using the more premium features. I believe they've changed it on some of these now, so it's not such a kind of false advertising bit. But some of them, you try and use these kind of premium features, and then before you know it, they send you an email after 30 days saying, oh, actually that QR code, now you've fallen onto basically a free trial, which doesn't support that anymore. And now all your traffic's just going to get sent to, the QR Code Monkey website or whatever it may be. So then everything you've just sent out, unless you want to pay for a premium subscription, which are usually quite expensive, we're talking £5 to £15 a month, they're pretty much holding you hostage to, if you want your QR code to work, you'll pay us monthly for that privilege, which, originally you wanted a free QR code. You didn't want to sign up for something that was, £10-15 a month. So it's one of those things that you have to check really closely. Like I say, there are ones out there. QR code generator from Shopify has been absolutely fine. I've had no issues with that. The Adobe Express one could be quite good. It's got a couple of little extra bits in there. You've got you can paste your link in there like we did before. You've got some style options, so just kind of slightly different styles. They've got borders, so you can change the edges and things like that, and the mark centers and things like that. And then you can't add your own hex value colors, but they've got some options for, so you're not going to be adding your brand colors to this, but they do have a couple of little options in there. And then you just pick what you want it as, a PNG, JPEG or SVG. SVG is a very nice option in this, because an SVG file is a vector, so you can scale that up huge. So, if you do want to do it for, it could be for like, a really big billboard poster, that type of thing, you could scale it up really large for that. Or, even for print in general, you could scale it up quite nicely from there. And then this one, you do need to sign up for an account, but it's not it's not like a paid one. Although I do have a paid Creative Cloud account, it's you just signing up for like the free tools, so you can do that through there, which works quite well. And as I say, neither of these are the most kind of feature rich, Adobe Express or the QR code generator from Shopify, but the other ones generally you will have to pay for. Like I say, I did try this one in the past. They may have changed the way it works now, but if you look at a few reviews and things for this, you'll see they kind of lead you in, and then all of a sudden they want you to kind of pay for things. And like I say, it's just absolutely not ideal if you're printing things. If it's just on your website and you've got to change an image, fine, like that's quite easy. But the fact that you've made the investment into printing things, it's it's a bit worse really. So there are other options out there with different things though. So we've got like QR IO, and again, this is the type of one, if you want to use the premium things on there, you'll probably be looking at paying a subscription. So it's one of those things where, you know, if you really want to use your brand colors, you want these shapes, and you can do quite cool things in there. Like you can add your logo to the middle of them, and you know, you could, like I say, you can use the kind of the shapes and things to make it look quite interesting, and use brand colors and all kinds of different things. So, you know, if you've got your logo and stuff in the middle, it's whether, you know, these things are worth it to you. And like I say, if you're going to use the premium features, always check out like the, you know, if there's a paid version of this, and, you know, if you're going to need to be paying for additional bits in it. I'm just trying to have a look at the if we do QRIO pricing, you kind of don't see this on the main bit of the site. It's just kind of not there. And then you can see on here you've got kind of all these different things. So you know, there's the different bits and pieces. So if you want an SVG through these guys, you need to sign up for that. So it may be that, you know, you want to reuse it, and then you sort of end up on this. And some of them also, they'll have a scan amount. So you might find that if you fall over the scan amount that's happening, then you end up on a kind of a paid tier as well. So it's just one of those things where you need to sort of, worst case, see how much you're going to be paying. If the volume's high, or if you've maybe fallen into a premium option, and you know, you might actually have to end up paying a monthly subscription. It's worth thinking to yourself, you know, how long is this QR code going to be out there for? If it's print, it might depend if it's print advertising, or if you know, it's something a bit more long term. I would probably say one of the better paid ones out there, if you do go that route, the Bitly QR code one is quite good, and Bitly is a good sort of service in itself. You know, if you don't know what Bitly do, they kind of they do link shortening for things, so you can kind of you can come in, you can do free ones on this. So they'll give you stuff up to, you know, up to an extent, like with the other ones. But then when you want to start doing other things, like adding colors, shapes, there's things like link tracking. You can see in here, you can do link tracking and things like that. It's one of those things where you sort of fall into that free tier. So it's worth just having a think, you know, do you want these customizations? Do you want the link tracking in there? I mean, you can actually do link tracking with a free Bitly account, and then use that Bitly link to link the QR code to whatever website it is you want to use. So, you know, there's options out there for these types of things, but you can see on here, you can do the there's a core plan at $8 a month, which isn't too bad compared to some of the other ones, and you can do 5 QR codes a month. Again, it completely depends, you know, like how much you need and what sort of you know, what your kind of goal with it is. If you want all that customization and everything, it's quite possible you're doing it on a kind of like maybe a brand level, and you're probably quite happy to pay like a few quid a month for it. So that's kind of it, really. It's just a bit of an overview of, you know, if you're going to create QR codes for yourself or your business, just have a think and weigh up, you know, what's kind of right, and have a look into who you're generating the codes through, and make sure that, you know, they're not going to start charging you if you don't want to be paying the, you know, those monthly fees. So yeah, hopefully this video helped. If it did, give the video a like. If you want to see more content like this, then please subscribe.